The cafe went silent for a moment. Even the coffee machine seemed to pause its steady hum. All eyes turned toward the tall man in a perfectly tailored suit, his voice calm, but his eyes tired, lonely, and full of something no amount of money could fix. The girl behind the counter blinked twice, unsure if she heard him right. I'm sorry. She stammered, her hand frozen mid-air holding a cup of cappuccino. I'm serious, he said quietly, setting the crisp bills on the counter. Just for one day. Pretend to be my date. It wasn't arrogance in his tone. It was heartbreak. And that's what made her stop walking away. Her name was Lila, a struggling barista who worked double shifts to pay rent and her brother's school fees. She had no time for games, and certainly not for strange offers from rich men. But there was something different about him. His voice cracked slightly when he said the word pretend. It didn't sound like a man playing around. It sounded like a man begging not to be alone, and so began a day neither of them would ever forget. He introduced himself as Adrian Hale, CEO of Hale Industries, the name printed across every newspaper business section in the city. Leela had served him coffee a few times before, but never imagined he even noticed her existence. He always came alone, ordered a black coffee, and stared out the window as if waiting for someone who never showed up. When he slid the 500 across the table that morning, she should have refused. But something in her heart whispered, this man doesn't need a date, he needs kindness. So she agreed. The moment they stepped out of the cafe, Adrian seemed like a different person. He smiled, awkwardly at first, then genuinely, as they walked through the city. He asked her about her favorite music, what books she liked, what she dreamed of doing if money wasn't an issue. And Leela answered, hesitantly at first, but soon with laughter. People stared at them. A CEO in an expensive suit walking beside a simple barista with messy hair and flour on her sleeves. But for a few hours, neither of them cared. Over lunch, she finally asked him the question that had been sitting in her heart all day. Why me? Adrian looked down at his untouched plate, fingers tightening around the fork. Because you don't look at me the way everyone else does. You don't see my money. You see me. He told her how a year ago, his fiancée had left him on their wedding day for his business partner. Since then, every woman he met saw him as an opportunity, not a person. The loneliness, he said, became louder than the applause he got in board meetings. Leela listened quietly, her chest tightening. Sometimes, she said softly, you just need someone to see the real you, not the version the world expects. He looked up, his eyes meeting hers. Exactly. As the day went on, they laughed, shared stories, and for the first time in months, Adrian looked alive. When they reached the pier that evening, he took off his expensive watch and placed it on the railings. I bought this when I thought success would make me happy, he said. It didn't. Leela smiled faintly. Maybe happiness isn't something you buy. It's something you share. He turned to her. Then what would make you happy, Leela? She thought for a moment. Not worrying about tomorrow. Seeing my brother go to college. And maybe having someone to talk to who actually listens. Adrian smiled sadly. You deserve all that. Night fell, and the city lights shimmered on the water. It felt strange, beautiful, yet temporary. Both of them knew this was just for one day. But somehow that made it even more precious. When he dropped her home, she handed back the 500. I don't want your money, she said. You didn't need to buy someone's company. You just needed to ask. He tried to insist, but she shook her head and smiled. You already paid me. With something better than money, you made me feel seen. Adrian stood there, speechless. For years, people had taken from him. This was the first time someone had given him something back, without asking for anything in return. A week later, Leela returned to work as usual. She assumed he'd moved on, back to his corporate world. But one morning, the cafe door opened, and there he was again, Adrian Hale, holding 2 cups of coffee. For you, he said, placing one on her counter, and for me. I thought maybe we could start with coffee this time. No pretending. Her heart skipped. So no 500 this time, she teased. He smiled, the loneliness gone from his eyes. No money? Just time? If you'll share it with me. That day marked the beginning of something real. He still had his empire, and she still worked her shifts. But now they had something neither of them had before, a reason to smile. Months passed. Leela's brother got into college. Adrian secretly arranged a scholarship but never told her. And one evening, as they walked the same pier where they'd first talked, he stopped and said quietly, that day I thought I was buying happiness. Turns out I was just finding it. Leela looked at him with tears in her eyes. And you didn't even need 500 for it. He took her hand. No, I just needed you. The wind carried the city lights across the water, and in that quiet moment, two broken souls who once lived in different worlds realized they were never meant to be alone. Because sometimes love doesn't come from grand gestures or perfect plans. It begins with a simple question from a lonely heart.